I'm Simon Hartzell, and this is NAI Global's Diving into Commercial Real Estate.
This is our episode of Diving into Commercial Real Estate. With today's sponsor, CompStack, I'd like to welcome Michael Mandel. Hello, Michael.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give us a little bit of your background and tell us a little bit about CompStack?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Michael Mandel. I'm co-founder and CEO of CompStack. And CompStack is a real estate data company. We work with commercial real estate brokers, appraisers, and research people throughout the country and actually throughout the world, gathering commercial real estate data, and also real estate investors and lenders on our enterprise side of our platform. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how that works, but my background is that I was actually a commercial real estate broker. I worked doing office leasing and data center transactions in New York City for about 5.5 years before starting CompStack, and started CompStack out of my experience as a broker, kind of having seen an opportunity in the market and decided to jump on it to build a company.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job at filling a need within the industry and really finding an opportunity to help service the commercial real estate brokerage community. Maybe you can elaborate on how exactly your product works?
Absolutely. Yeah, so really CompStack has two parts to our platform, but primarily the area where we're working with NAI is on CompStack Exchange. And CompStack Exchange is a platform where commercial real estate brokers, appraisers, and research people within real estate brokerage firms can share data to get other data in return. What we're best known for is the data that we've been doing since day one, which is lease comparable data. So we have data in our platform that is really very, very detailed information on commercial lease transactions that have taken place. So our members submit comps to CompStack, including all the details, so tenant name, landlord name, address, square footage, floor, rent step-ups over time, concessions, the brokers involved in a transaction. They submit these lease comps to CompStack. They earn credits for sharing those comps, which is like a virtual currency. And they can then use those credits to get other comps back out on CompStack. So it's effectively one for one. For every comp you put in, you can get another one out, but it's totally fair, totally transparent, and you can find exactly the comps that you're most interested in. So we've been doing lease comps for over 6 years now, and we've actually started crowdsourcing sales comps as well in the past 6 months or so. So you can also contribute sales comps to get other sales comps back out. And we capture detailed property information as well. So it's really valuable information that we find our members use every day when working on transactions and also prospecting for new business.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome platform. It seems like, again, you've really nailed it where there's a need, and if brokers have an interest in learning more about your service and product, how do they contact you? How do they get a hold of you and your staff?
Absolutely. Well, anybody can feel free to email me directly. I'm just Michael at compstack.com, COMPSTAK.com. But our website is compstack.com. You can sign up for free. And, if you're a member of NAI, you can sign up for a free account. We'll approve you immediately. And we actually offer special incentives as part of a partnership we have structured with NAI, where NAI members actually earn triple credits for their own deals that they provide to CompStack. So instead of getting one comp out for an NAI deal that they provide, they actually get 3 comps out for one deal that they submit. And we're also providing, over time, more and more additional functionality specifically for NAI members. So we're looking to bring on, as many people as we can in all the different, NAI member offices throughout the country and the world, and really build out the database with the NAI population. We're in now close to 10,000 cities in the U.S. and a little bit in the UK as well. So we already have very broad coverage, and there's a lot of opportunity to get lots of data out, but we're looking to continue to build the database and partner with NAI to do that.
That's great. Yeah, thank you again for giving that overview, Michael. I think this is a valuable tool and appreciate you today for being our sponsored guest.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of NAI Global's Diving into Commercial Real Estate. Today's episode is Doing Business in Tertiary Markets, Challenges and Opportunities. And with us today is our guest speaker, Andie Edmonds. Hello, Andie.
Hi.
First, I'm going to give a little background on Andie. Andie is the managing partner at NAI Cascade Commercial Real Estate, one of the largest commercial real estate companies in Central Oregon, and is part of the NAI Global network of companies. She's a champion of transparent deal development and open source technologies in commercial real estate. Andie provides a comprehensive advisory service for commercial real estate investment firms and high net worth investors as a single point of contact. In this role, she coordinates the participation in all phases of acquisition and disposition process, from market research through closing across the United States. Andie's abilities to uncover investment opportunities across the country through thoughtful fostering relationships and cutting-edge technology streamlines the initial analysis, resulting in an efficient asset review. Her tenacious effort and attentive communication ensures that as deals move forward, all parties remain focused to the optimized returns. Andie also holds the prestigious CCIM designation, which represents proven expertise in financial, market, and investment analysis through advanced coursework and demonstrated extensive experience. She has served CCIM as the Oregon Southwest Washington Chapter President and is currently the first regional vice president and serves on multiple national committees across the country. Thanks for joining us here today, Andie, on this podcast.
Thanks, Simon. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background as it relates to commercial real estate.
So I should start with the fact that I graduated from University of Oregon, proud Duck, and it's an important part of my life as several of my family members were Ducks, and now I have my son at University of Oregon, and my daughter just confirmed that she'll be attending in the fall, so I always like to mention that. My youngest daughter is thinking about NYU, however, so I'm really hoping the commercial market stays strong, and look forward to seeing where that takes her. But I also started my career in mortgage lending at a bank called First Bank, and it's now part of B of A. But I quickly moved on to an opportunity to be a stockbroker with Shearson Lehman Hutton, and I think about 17 acquisitions later, I believe it's now Morgan Stanley. When my husband and I started a family, I decided to stay home, but I got hooked on flipping houses. It was early 2000, and the housing market in Portland was really strong, and it didn't seem like you could, do any wrong with whatever house that I chose, and I found that really compelling as an investment. So after we moved to Bend and my family, my children were getting older, I was ready to get back to work, and real estate was a pretty obvious choice at that point, given the experience. But I'm very analytical, not particularly emotional as it relates to real estate, and so I quickly realized that commercial real estate was a great way to combine my academic strength into an industry that I really enjoy. And that's kind of how I got started.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people in this business, there's no set path. Everybody kind of develops their own way through the business and how they come up into the business. So I always like to get a little bit of that background for our listeners, and appreciate you sharing that. So how did you segue into your current position there with NAI Cascade?
So when I first started, you know, Bend's a little tiny town in the middle of Oregon. We're a great mountain golf resort. We had a snowboarder in the Olympics, so Bend was getting some good attention at that point. And so we just had local firms. NAI actually is the first global firm that is in our market. So I started with one of the little local firms, and after doing that for about 4 years and kind of finding my way through a really tough market, I started in 2008. And but after getting through that and finding that I really enjoyed the industry despite the market circumstances, I partnered with Ken Streeter, who is still my partner today, and we did that with the goal to look at commercial real estate a little differently and to move away from sort of the traditional, you know, cold call until you can't lift the phone anymore, get as many signs in the ground, repeat, that sort of model. It wasn't really settling with either Ken or myself. We decided to look at where commercial real estate is heading. You know, what are the critical components to bringing together the right seller and the right buyer? Technology was really starting to show up as a possibility within commercial real estate. You know, we tend to lag as an industry in that. And so we were looking to use that technology and this really incredible network of relationships that we had built at that point primarily through CCIM. Ken is also a CCIM. But we really wanted to foster the idea of building those relationships on trust and transparency, and we felt some of the technology was really going to help foster that. So at that point, I couldn't say that I envisioned being the second largest commercial-only brokerage firm in Central Oregon, but I think that culture that we created, that collaborative, creative environment, it stimulates the idea of figuring out what you're passionate about and what makes you want to wake up in the morning looking forward to getting to the office. You know, really going for what you see your career path within commercial real estate being. And so, you know, with that motivating you, the success follows. And, you know, some people gauge success purely in dollars, or others it's having time to spend with your kids, or, you know, some sort of athletic pursuit, and it really just feeds on itself. And so that's what got us going. And then, of course, the obvious connection there with this great network, and to grow it even further by becoming part of NAI Global, that was a big connector for us.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you would consider that you're in a pure tertiary market. Is that correct?
You know, sometimes I'm not sure we even qualify as tertiary, but we're small. Yeah, that our MSA, and I use that term very loosely, is about 180,000 people. And the thing that's really interesting about where we are is we truly are in the middle of Oregon, and we're on the other side of the Cascade Mountains, east of the Cascades, whereas the cities that anybody, you know, outside of Oregon might be familiar with, they're on the west side, you know, Portland, Salem, Eugene. And so our closest true city is probably Eugene. It's about a 2.5-hour drive. So not only are we a small town, small MSA, but we aren't, if you compare us to Boulder as an example, and we get that comparison, that's great. There's a lot of similarities between our two towns, but Boulder is really just outside of Denver. You can get there pretty quickly. I think it's 40, 45 minutes, something like that. So they have that connector to that larger city. We're a little island in the middle of our state. We're just surrounded by desert, not water. so it's pretty unique.
So at what point did you determine, or did you have that aha moment that really made things kind of explode for you and Ken as a business, that maybe have taken you to the next level, or took you beyond that local, or helped to grow your local market and business? I know I'm asking a bunch of different questions, but it's that point where you kind of saw yourselves kind of developing into a more of a regional and then even a national player in your own regards.
Yeah, it does kind of sneak up on you. You know, I think one of the other core pieces that motivated Ken and I to come together is that we both agreed we were really tired of hearing this phrase, you know, that's how we've always done it, or you can't do it that way. And telling me can't, just as long as it doesn't violate the law, my personal morals or integrity, can't isn't is a choice. It's not an imperative, right? So you can tell me that that's going to be tough, or you can tell me that's going to take extra work, or you can even say, I don't want to do it that way, but telling me can't doesn't resonate. And in fact, it probably just motivates me, because proving someone wrong under that circumstance where it feels like they're just being lazy or refusing to consider the possibilities of trying something new, that's motivational to me. And so ultimately, that is what led us to NAI Global, because the idea of being able to work with these really large clients, and Ken had some as well, or has some as well, and people say, well, you can't be in Bend, Oregon and work with someone in, Ken's got a very big client out of Nebraska, and I've got a very big client out of New York and one out of LA. There's no reason for that anymore. Again, going back to the technology and going back to really utilizing a strong network, that's really core to the success, I think, as real estate continues forward, as our market continues to grow. And so I think I'm getting the answer that you're, you know, or the answering the questions that you posed. But there was somewhere in there, it wasn't a true, clear aha moment, but as we kept looking for ways to do what we felt could be done, that no one needed to tell us, or people could tell us can't, I guess, but we didn't listen. And so as we kept trying to be open to how do we do better at what we're doing, and how do we grow this idea of working with these really sizable, especially relative to our market and what's expected that somebody can accomplish in our market, that is what continued to drive us to look for things. And it was that moment when we found NAI Global that we said, yes, that's the missing link. We've got all these other little things aligned, and that's what's going to loop it all together for us.
Well, I love the point that, you know, putting commercial real estate aside, technology or any business in general, or anything you're doing, just the attitude that you've decided to have as an organization really made you guys unstoppable. And that's what I'm kind of almost kind of attributing your answer to, is you had the right attitude, you had the right ingredients to not be held back as a firm based on your market size, which I think is extremely powerful for our listeners. Doesn't matter if you're in a tertiary market or you're in the largest market in the world. If you don't have the right attitude, you're destined to fail. Yeah. I mean, I feel really strongly about that. You know, just your attitude and how you come to, you know, anything you do in your life, whether it's a personal pursuit or, you know, a professional pursuit. I know that, you know, I love to golf, and when I go to the golf course, I know that if I go there and I'm trying to squeeze it in and I'm feeling like I really should be at the office, and, you know, I'm kind of in this like hazy attitude, how I play that day versus a day when I go in there and I'm like, I am so ready to play some great golf. My game's 100% different, right? So it works for everything. And I know it sounds kind of, you know, woo-woo and whatever. It just, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, it's just, you got to stick with the facts. But attitude is everything, I guess, and that's very cliche, but I
I believe, at 150%.
Well, no, I think it's a great point, because we kind of go through our day so quickly, and maybe an email or a phone call turns you off or changes your day, but you have to kind of muster up your focus to remain in that I can kind of way of doing business, so you don't get thrown off.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'll kind of go a little further into how NAI Global helps with that, because what it did for us, what we realized is, and we looked at other alternatives, you know, SBN or some of the others that have a similar type of model, or maybe have a franchise model. But for us, NAI Global gave us this perfect blend of freedom to operate the business the way we wanted to, and staying in alliance with this culture and this positive outlook type of thing without any of this heavy-handed oversight. Yet we get all the benefits of the national brand. We get the lead generation, whether it's through other offices or corporate services or C3 or capital markets. We get discounts to relevant businesses. Anybody who's not taking advantage of the national car rental discounts that we get is crazy. It's worth every penny. I travel a lot, so you know I'm probably a little more attuned to it, but it's been fantastic. But that all of those things, plus the wealth of information through the local offices, and it's not just market intel. I mean, that's superior. It really is. The offices that we have are terrific and generous in providing market intel when we need it. But it goes further. It's the support in areas like, you know, recruiting and feedback on technologies that somebody else in, you know, Dallas is using, and we're deciding whether we want to use it, and I have someone to talk to that I know I'm going to get a straight answer from. You know, input from experience with corporate clients. You know, maybe we're trying to get in with a corporate client, you know, within our market, and I can talk to someone, you know, in North Carolina about their experience with that company, and or trying to get into a contact with that company. All of those things are just very powerful, and I don't, you know, I can't say that I've had experience with some of those other firms that offer franchise or networking opportunities, but the culture that NAI Global has created, from my perspective, in terms of this very open willingness to help, it has really been, again, very powerful. It has opened up our thinking about how and where we do business. You know, what are those possibilities? And again, going back to that idea that, you know, Ken and I had some experience in working with clients outside of our market prior to joining NAI Global, but you are kind of like in the clouds trying to figure it out, because no one else seems to be doing that, right? And so that opening that came with NAI Global, that this is possible, and so why don't I ask my clients, prospects, even friends and family, who they know that need help with commercial real estate? I mean, how powerful is it for a client or a prospective client to feel like they can count on you to be this massive resource for commercial real estate really worldwide? And then how powerful is it for the broker or the agent? Our market's principal broker. I know other markets are broker agent. So when I say broker, I'm referring to an agent. But how powerful is it for them to know that they can really help their clients in this way? I mean, truly help them. And that's part of this sort of ongoing epiphany that we've been having as a member of NAI Global.
Do you have a maybe a case study or a real life situation where you made that work for you and your client?
Yeah. So I guess the easiest example has been talked about quite a bit in this last year, but it really is the best, most powerful example. And you know, I don't know who might end up ultimately listening to this, so I'll keep the story brief for those who have heard it before. And if somebody listens to this and they want a little more detailed information as to how it transpired, they're welcome to call me and I can give them that. But through a friend, and again, just kind of asking, like, you know, keep me in mind if you know someone who's interested in commercial real estate, right? Doesn't matter where they are. I keep telling everybody that. Doesn't matter where they are. And so through a friend, I was introduced to a gentleman by the name of Howard. I was going to New York for a NAI leadership conference. And my friend had said, hey, you need to meet this guy, Howard. He's in New York. It turns out that he's a principal at a small investment firm based in Westchester County. And his firm invests in the Southeast, Carolinas, northern Florida, Georgia, that kind of thing. And so at the time when I went to go meet him, I really didn't have any perceived notion on how I might be able to help him. But we had a conversation. We talked about commercial real estate. We talked about Oregon, and it was just friendly and cordial. But after that, I kept thinking there has to be something. And I remember pointedly asking him as he talked about all these different companies that he was working with, and I said, you haven't mentioned NAI, and, you know, are we blackballed? I mean, was there a bad experience? You know, I was trying to understand because I knew our Southeast offices were all very strong. And so in the end, again, after probably a period of a few months and just having some conversations, sending him some of the research that I saw coming out of the Southeast and getting that to him, I finally had the opportunity to connect him and his VPs of acquisition with several of our offices throughout the Southeast. And that kind of goes to that idea, as you read my bio, was this idea that I became the single point of contact for their firm, even though they were talking to multiple different offices. And, you know, it's sort of herding the cats, right? So they're interested in this market for this particular product type and this market for this particular product type. And so I kept kind of herding those cats, and ultimately it led to a $42 million industrial deal in Charleston, South Carolina. I worked with Dexter and Shep out of NAI Charleston. We closed that deal last November, and I think there's probably another couple deals that will get transacted this year as well with Howard and his team. So, you know, that's an exciting story. But I do think, and I get kind of sensitive about this because it's important to note that when I talk about expanding your geographic reach, it's not about going into another market and seeking out clients to you know, quote, poach from another NAI office. It's about using that network to identify people that either, you know, like Howard, don't live in the markets that they invest in, or it's identifying that you have the capacity to reach someone in a local market that a local office has been unable to connect with, right? So it's truly the power of that network. We can't know everyone, and frankly, there is plenty to go around. I mean, we all know brokers that we think, you know, how in the hell do they survive? So when you're excellent at what you do, and others, you know, clients, lenders, title officers, et cetera, know that they can count on you, and then you back that with a global network, you really become unstoppable, except if you get hung up on the idea that it's never been done that way or you can't do it that way. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, it's not that expansion of your thinking about geographic limitations and taking clients from someone else. It's trying to, if everybody within as an example, the NAI network was to say, who do I know? Set geographic boundaries aside. then who can I work with within that market? You know, I worked with NAI Charleston. It wasn't like I was trying to go around them. And NAI Charleston's opportunity to potentially find Howard, whose company is based in New York, and they don't own any assets in Charleston at that time. So, you know, how would they ever identify him, right? Yet I identify him through a friend, and I bring him into that market. You know, that's a $42 million deal is kind of exciting.
It's awesome, and it brings me back to almost a childhood game that we played, and we still play it today, called Connect the Dots. You had the opportunity, and you recognized that you have the ability to connect the dots through a friend that referred you to Howard, Howard's portfolio in the Southeast, to the network of NAI. It was just, you brought all the pieces together to execute the needs of the client, which is awesome. Yeah,
and I think it's a good point, or a good moment to emphasize the point that, like any network, SIOR, CCIM, NAOP, NAI Global, you get out of it what you put into it. And again, stupid cliche, I hate it, but there's no better way to say it. There's so much to be gained by engaging through the conferences that we have, through the booths at ICSC, through regional gatherings. You know, our Western market tends to get together on a pretty regular basis, sometimes just a phone call to, you know, ask questions or just connect, or we'll try and seek each other out at a leadership conference, you know, an NAI leadership conference. Those are the things that make it so much easier, because I had met so many people in the Southeast, Terra Atlantic and Earl Furman, off the NAI Earl Furman and NAI Charleston, all of those different offices. I had met at least one person in almost all those offices. So when I was trying to play connect the dots, I had someone that I could call. You know, I called Hal at NAI Earl Furman. We had met at a leadership conference, and I just said, you know, this is what I've got. I'm not totally sure what to do with it, but can we get on a call? And he's like, yeah, 100%. You know, so those are the things that happen, and happen more easily when you really have developed that network, when you stay in touch with people, when you know, connect with them through LinkedIn, and then you look for them at the conference or at the booth or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, and you also, you to the point, you get what you put in. So if you're not in the mindset of trying to develop these relationships, then the word can't then comes back into your vocabulary. But since you can, and you want to, and you want to use this, and it kind of it helps to benefit you, and it leads to results. Yeah. Shifting gears to your experience with NAI and also your involvement with CCIM, how have you seen overlap, benefits? How has that helped your business?
Yes, you know, they both offer me a network, right? And again, in developing that network, as you mentioned, I'm involved with several committees at the national level, so I attend those conferences for CCIM, and I develop those relationships, and they often come into play in a coordinated manner. There have been situations where I might be working with an NAI office, but I need some sort of particular expertise that maybe has to do more with lending or some other aspect of the transaction, and I can reach to my CCIM network to make sure that I'm working with someone in whatever capacity that might be to help me out. You know, there's also situations where we have markets that maybe just don't have someone with a particular expertise that I need for a client. We have one market that is really has a very strong capacity for multifamily, but is a little less strong on the office side. In this particular case, I was needing some help on the office side, and it wasn't a perfect fit for the client that I had at that time. So I can then use my CCIM network for someone that can help me, with that. And that was after talking to the guys in this particular office to say, this is what I'm looking for. And they were very frank about it. And they're like, that's not something that's within our expertise. And I greatly appreciate that, because now I know what I can count on from them. And they were very helpful to say, hey, here's the market data that we can give you, and here's the ways that we can help you, but we're not going to be able to help you uncover an off-market office opportunity. That's not where our strong connections lie. So those are the ways that I can really benefit from that. And ultimately, I'm building a strong network that's really based on trust and confidence. So they can be confident that if I'm bringing them someone that needs help in their market, that I'm going to make sure that they're appropriately compensated and that they're appropriately recognized for their efforts within this, that if they're having trouble getting a hold of or getting information from the client that I've brought to them, that I'm there to go make sure that gets done, and vice versa. So it kind of, again, keeps everything moving along, and it's a little bit different than just saying, hey, here's a referral and walking away. I want everyone to benefit from it, and so they know that they can trust me and have confidence that I'm going to perform in the way that I say I'm going to perform, whether it's from the broker's perspective in that local market or my client's perspective.
Yeah, plus it sounds like you've got an opportunity to vet out the client, so it's not it's somebody that's willing, able, and serious. Yeah. Prospective client that you're referring into, either an NAI, CCIM, or a combination of both.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important piece of it. You can't just, pepper someone with names that you come up with and say, oh, this is a referral. I mean, I think a referral implies that you have, some type of reasonable connection with them, and they're just simply needing something that if they were in your market or looking in your market, you would be able to provide for them, but you can't, so because they're wanting to be in the Southeast. And so it's the outreach to say, hey, I need your help and your expertise, but this person that I'm bringing to you or company or whatever is legitimate, and I'm going to make sure that we get a deal done so that you're not wasting your time. I don't want someone to throw a referral my way and then I find out that what they need or want isn't what the brokers described to me, right? So I think it's important as a referral giver that you do have, I don't like the word control, but you have a knowledge and understanding and a relationship at some level with that person before you just, send them off. Or, I mean, I suppose if it's just a name, I guess you'd rather get a name, but with at least the knowledge that, hey, I really don't know too much about this person or this company, but this is what they're telling me, and, and here it is. And in those cases, I'm not going to expect, some sort of 50-50 split on that. I'm not offering any value with it, but, at least give that office a chance to vet it out, and maybe it turns out to be something good. So I just think again, that builds the trust and confidence because you're being forthright with what the relationship is.
Absolutely, and you're transparent, so that's probably one of the most important pieces. You're not claiming to have more information than you may have. So let me ask you this question, because based on what I've heard already today, it sounds like it doesn't matter if you're in a tertiary market, primary market. You've figured out the ingredients to make it work for your organization. With real estate obviously going through cycles, how do you see your firm, or how are you preparing for the next cycle change? What are some of the steps that you're taking either as an organization or recommending for clientele?
Yeah, so, I mean, we all know that clients have a very broad array of investment strategies. You know, if I took all the clients that are in our office, and I've got, there's a total of 10 brokers counting myself and my partner Ken, and you know, I would say that more than half of my brokers are still primarily focused in the Central Oregon area, or Oregon at least. They're not making big stretches, but you know, we have referred, there's several that have at least referred a deal outside of our market, and that's been great. But looking at all of those people that we work with, you know, there's huge variation in risk tolerances and so forth. So I think that one of the things that we've really been emphasizing as our market, particularly the Central Oregon market, has really become pretty overheated, in my opinion, and I think most people would agree, where we've become this sort of ideal destination to move to. We get a lot of people coming up from Silicon Valley, and so we have a fair amount of wealth that comes into our market, but they come up and they're like, yeah, I want to, you know, sell my assets here in whatever city they're coming from, and I want to put them in Central Oregon. And it's really difficult to say, well, okay, great, I can get you an office building with, you know, an average of 3 or 4 years left on the leases, and it's really local, maybe a regional tenant or two, and by the way, the seller wants a 5.5 cap. And I don't know how to say that with a straight face and say, oh, you should definitely do that. I mean, that right now you're destroying trust and credibility, because how do you look at that and say that makes sense in this really still economically volatile market like Central Oregon, when I know full well from my network that I can go talk to Mike Erkman over at NAI Select in Boise, which is about a 5-hour drive east of Bend, and collaborate with him because his market has similar opportunities, only they've got a more stable economy by virtue of their size and some other things. And they've got deals that trade upwards of a 7 cap. And so that's what we're talking to our clients about is, you know, yeah, I understand you want to be here, but if you're really trying to make a good investment, let us help you look at some of these other markets that at this point in time are offering a better opportunity, and we have local market expertise to help us understand what happens in that market and what we should be aware of, what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses, those types of things. And that is, again, such a powerful piece to offer a client, and to be honest with them and say, I think you might want to, given your criteria, given your risk parameters, et cetera, I think we might want to look at this other place. And so that's where we're taking our clients, is saying, you know, here's a couple choices. One, let's hold some cash for a while because we think we're pretty overheated and we think there might be a pullback a little bit and we might have a better opportunity. And then 2 is, hey, if you really do want to invest now, you have a 1031 exchange or whatever the case might be, here's other opportunities. And for us, again, in a tertiary market, and for those that I've talked to in other tertiary markets, a lot of times the NAI office is the only global office. You know, there's no Colliers or CBRE or JLL in those markets. And so we really do have an advantage to say, hey, our firm can help you, truly help you, look at other places that might offer you a better opportunity currently.
Well, it's so interesting because you're really building that, as you say, credibility with your client, because you're not just trying to make a deal, you're trying to do what's right and what's best for maybe their over investment strategy. So
Right.
That's a very interesting take, because again, you've taken your local market and now have multiplied that by how many times in the relationships that you built across the country and the globe in order to kind of sift through some of the markets that may be a better fit for that investment portfolio or the client. So it's very interesting point there.
Yeah.
So Andie, I want to shift gears a little bit. Some fun questions for you, and
Okay.
hopefully these aren't the most difficult ones you've gotten today. But
Okay.
so you've won $10 million tax-free. What commercial real estate do you purchase?
This is my gut reaction. I would be looking for value-add industrial in secondary markets along key distribution routes. I've become really fascinated by logistics and distribution, and it was one of my favorite subjects in school. I was a business major with in finance, but my logistics classes I really enjoyed, and at the time I didn't really see where they fit for me, but as I've gotten more involved in commercial real estate, especially nationally, and of course as we see, what's going on with e-commerce, I think that's what I'd be looking for. It's kind of like house, right? Only on steroids. I'm just making them better and putting them back out there.
Well, and that's the beauty of this business. It gives you the ability to kind of tap into some of those passions that you've had, and maybe at certain points you didn't realize you had, and this business kind of brings them out and allows you to kind of exercise them or go after them. So interesting. Okay, good.
Huh.
So this would be considered you're 3 hours behind. I'm on East Coast, you're on West Coast. It's coming up to lunch and maybe a little bit past your breakfast. So what's your favorite food?
I love sandwiches. I could live my life on sandwiches. I mean, they're perfect, right? It's like everything you need in a meal between two slices of hopefully really, really good bread. I love that.
We're not talking peanut butter and jelly here. This is a real hearty.
Yeah, I have some like solid roast beef and some great veggies and cheese, and it's perfect. It's efficient and delicious.
Okay, Andie, and last question. With all the hustle and time going on and just being business orientated, what's your biggest passion outside of the world of real estate, either personally or family related?
I mean, I mentioned golf, and that's definitely a big thing. Where I mentioned I've got 3 kids, college, high school, and middle school, and that's been a great family activity for us. Of course, anything that involves my kids is great. My youngest daughter is a beautiful dancer. I was at a competition all weekend for her, and my middle daughter is an equestrian, and so just watching them. She had a terrific event yesterday that my husband had to attend because I was over in Portland with my other daughter, and watching them do that. My son is very involved with music, and of course all things Duck, as I mentioned. We like the football games, and I think the other thing that I really like that's a great mind relaxer is stand-up paddleboarding, and we have tons of lakes and rivers, and I have a great stand-up paddleboard that I received for Mother's Day a few years ago with a giant Oregon O on it, and so I love putting that in the water, getting away from it because I can't have my phone out on the water.
Yeah, you need to have some escape from time to time, that's for sure.
Yeah,
so.
And I'll also throw out I'm a wicked Texas Hold'em player, so, if anybody's around and wants a game of Texas Hold'em, they can come find me.
Awesome. Well, Andie, this is all great stuff. I think you nailed a lot of the topics and discussion of really doesn't matter you're in a tertiary or as I said, the biggest market in the world. There's opportunities to be found. It's just a matter of having the right attitude and going after it. So I'd like to thank you again. Yeah, I'd like to thank you again, Andie Edmonds. And if anyone on this episode of the NAI podcast wants to get a hold of you, is there a specific number or contact information that you're willing to share?
Yeah, of course. So my cell phone, like all of us, the easiest way to find me, because I do travel quite a bit, and that's 541-306-0042. And email's also great. It's aedmonds, EDMONDS, at naicascade.com.
Perfect. Again, thank you, Andie. And if any of our listeners would like to find out more information on the NAI Global platform, feel free to email us, help@naiglobal.com. Thank you for listening.